Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and today I want to talk about Clerics and Deity Disapproval. Alright, so this video is part of my DCC Basics series. So far I've covered Luck and Mighty Deeds, and the Dice Chain. Today I want to cover something that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as some of those other things, and that is Clerics and Deity Disapproval. Now, personally, I think that Deity Disapproval adds a lot of character, but I don't think it gets talked about as much because of the fact that it is less of a boon to Clerics and more of a bane. That being said, I think it adds a lot of character to what Clerics are and how they operate in the game, and so I think it's important for us to break it down and talk about it. So first and foremost, Cleric Magic, or Idle Magic as it is technically called in the DCC rulebook, is dependent on their relationship with their deity represented through disapproval and sacrifice. So mechanically, this is done through spell checks. A natural one always indicates both failure and disapproval. Now, spell checks is not just the act of casting a spell. Anytime you turn unholy, or lay on hands, or ask or request for divine aid, these things are also considered spell checks. So remember that anytime that you are doing these things, you are asking for the favor of your god and ultimately, potentially, irritating them. So let's talk about how this works. Additionally, each failed spell check increases the chance of disapproval by 1. So what this means is let's say the combat ends and you decide to lay on hands on three of your injured comrades, and you manage to fail all 3 checks. So your normal disapproval is 1, then you failed 1, and so now your disapproval goes to 2. On the second one, your disapproval goes to 3, and on that third failed check, your disapproval goes to 4. So if you roll a 1 through a 4, it's going to result in having to roll on the Deity Disapproval chart. So, the more times that you petition your god throughout the day, the greater the... It's basically a push your luck mechanic. The more that you ask for from your god, the more likely you are to invoke some sort of wrath upon you for being so demanding and being so needy. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, how do I reset this? Because if you're constantly by rolling dice and failing, you're increasing the chances of disapproval. You know, how do I offset that? Well, first and foremost, at the end of the day, your disapproval range resets back to 1. So, you know, if you get to a point where you're at like 5 or 6 disapproval and the character is afraid to make a roll, then just don't cast anything for the rest of the game day. Your other option is to make a sacrifice. And so in the DCC rulebook, mechanically, you have to utilize 50 gold pieces. You have to sacrifice 50 gold pieces per point of disapproval that you want to eradicate. And you can't just give that money away. You have to destroy it in some way. So it can be an item that's worth 50 gold pieces, like if let's say you had a 50 gold piece ruby and you're like, I smash it with a hammer and then scatter the dust. That would qualify as a suitable sacrifice. But it has to be eradicated in some way because they don't want you to just like give the money away and then have the thief in the party steal it back. So mechanically, that is how that works. The other option is to quest for it. Now, obviously, if it resets in a day, to go on some sort of epic quest, you know, before the end of the day is kind of ridiculous. But it might be some sort of specific request. You know, the judge might decide that if you're able to convert 1 new follower to your god, or you know, something along those lines, something that can be done within a day, then that might be a reasonable way to, you know, cut down disapproval. So, but the important thing is that you can knock those points back down through the act of sacrifice. That leads to sinful use of divine power. This is another thing that your judge is going to have to adjudicate, or if you're playing this to the letter, you're going to want to be mindful of as a judge, is that it is permissible to heal somebody of an opposed alignment. I've got a character that's in my current campaign that is a chaotic cleric, and there's a bunch of lawful people in the party. Every time that they heal somebody that is lawful in the party, they should be accruing 1 point of disapproval for, helping this rival alignment character. In fact, they indicate in the rules that it should be 1 point for every minor infraction, up to 10 points for a major infraction. And what would a major infraction be? Well, let's say healing a deity from healing a cleric from an opposed god. So let's say in my campaign, I've got a cleric that is a cleric of Delvir. If they were to heal a cleric of Hurlizect, which is the debased god, an evil god, they would ultimately, deserve to, have 10 points of disapproval, just like that. So that being said, let's talk about the disapproval chart. So the disapproval chart ranges from 1 to 20 plus, with the required penance escalating with each point. So at 1 point, it'll be something like, if you roll a 1 on the chart, it'll be something like your cleric has to pray or chant for 10 minutes in game time. So essentially for 1 turn, they're going to be taken out of action, or they're going to delay the party because they have to spend that time chanting and asking for forgiveness from their god. Whereas something on like a 20 is going to be like a permanent loss of a spell, or a loss of the ability to lay on hands for a month, or something along those lines. Now, how do you get to 20 plus on the chart? Well, every time that you have to roll on the chart, you're going to roll 1d4 for each point of disapproval you accrued. So we're going to rewind back to that cleric that I said that tried to heal, lay on hands on 3 other party members and failed all 3 times. So their disapproval range was from 1 to 4. Because their disapproval is 4, they're going to roll 4d4 when they're rolling on the chart. So they could get a result anywhere from a 4 to a 16 on the chart, which is a pretty nasty range. So they might honestly, lose something, fairly significant, like the ability to, turn unholy for the span of a week or something like that. So let's talk about the chart a little bit more. So there is a generic disapproval chart in the DCC rulebook. It's great, but it can get a little boring, particularly if you have characters from multiple different gods. So the DCC Annual actually has a bunch of different deities and unique disapproval charts for each of them. In fact, I used this as a guide when I was creating the Tome of Debasement, which is my love letter to evil clerics and is about Hurlizect, the debased god. And so this particular zine actually has a bunch of spells for evil clerics, as well as a disapproval chart for worshippers of Hurlizect, etc. So yeah, this is, as I said, a unique and characterful approach to deities. I think it's a fantastic thing, and ultimately, it is going to require a little bit more judge's discretion. It also is going to require a bit more resource management, because you're going to need to keep track of disapproval every single day and remember to reset it. But ultimately, I think it just adds a lot of character. So that was my treatise on Deity Disapproval. Check out the other videos in the series I'm doing on DCC Basics. This is Nick from Breaker Press Games. Signing off. You have a great week, and thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. Take care.